With the defeat of Honoric's army, the rightful ruler of Earthmancast has returned to his throne. But even as the people of the city celebrate, evil stirs in the bowels of all. Denizens of the Rift have captured allies that the lord of the city holds dear, and he must set forth to venture their escape. This might seem like an impossible task, but he is no mere man. He is Avenger. I am Ninja. My parents are the heaven and the earth. My home is my body. My power is loyalty. My magic is training. My life and my death is breathing. My body is control. My eyes are the sun and the moon. My ears are sensitivity. My laws are self-protection. My strength is adaptability. My ambition is taking every opportunity with fullness. My friend is my mind. My enemy is carelessness. My protection is right action. My weapons are everything that exists. My strategy is one foot in front of the other. My trust is in quality. My way is the way of the tiger. Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more of The Way of the Tiger. Now as we all know, last time things did not go particularly well and we ran into a few consistency and flow issues of this book and I had to pull out the reprinted full colour hardback. At which point this final encounter played out significantly differently. And I made a very sleepy late night mistake. I didn't feel that sleepy at the time, but apparently I was, because at the section where I was trying to disable Form, the illusionist, which has been added to the fight but seems to have no effect on it since he seems to be fully back up and capable at the same point as he was in the original anyway. I attempted to strike him twice, and I did. And then I turned to the wrong section. I turned to the section for failing to hit him twice. For if he's still up after 2 attacks. Which means I was hit in the back of the head by Cassandra for 6 points of damage. From 13 to 6 is 7 points of damage. Okay. If I had turned to the correct section, I would have sensed her approach, having defeated Form and thrown him into her, disrupting her attack.
Not that he'd get hurt, but it's more just, throw one person into another to, unbalance them both, which would have then led into the fight with Churchev here. Which means that when Churchev struck me for 9 points of damage, I would have been on 13 endurance points, not 6, and survived. But he's a very good fighter, and he could have hit me again, and I could have died anyway. So I'm okay with that. Additionally, there are things I could probably have done better. Such as finding the bullthrush-headed pin, which feels like it should be an item associated with Cassandra. Not Cassandra, Lady Foxglove. Speaking of which, Foxglove was all over the place in the last episode. She was in the adventure, she was out of the adventure, then she was in the adventure again without her return being announced or commented on at all. Yeah. And it turns out at that point she was a death trap anyway, so it's all fine. So I'm reasonably happy with going back to the beginning of the book and playing through again in an attempt to do better. Now, let's go back to the beginning. After I finished recording and uploading last time, I went to bed. And I was thinking about the adventure so much I couldn't sleep. So eventually I had to get out of bed and come downstairs and start reading through the book again. I was too tired to record properly, but awake enough to dig through the book looking for things like the bullthrush-headed pin, because I strongly suspected that it was something to do with Lady Foxglove, and if we had gone to Cassandra and Foxglove's camp at the beginning of the book, we could have obtained that item. So I went and looked and checked, and no. If you go to the camp, you can, completely fail quite spectacularly. I was correct, by the way, about the illustration of Cassandra taking the player character prisoner. This picture here, I was correct that this can happen at the camp if you mess up. If you try to capture Cassandra, you can beat her up, or she can beat you up and the orcs can take you prisoner, and she can gouge out the eye and take it for herself. Not great. So, you can take one of them prisoner at that opportunity, and you can poison your prisoner and kill them, but you can't take them both prisoner. And the other one will leave for the rift. If you don't, that's if you go alone, you can drag out a prisoner. If you go with Gwyneth, you can capture Cassandra or get captured by Cassandra and the orcs. At which point Foxglove will surrender herself, but the cold sword is taken away from Cassandra. So I was correct in my original choice to offer them amnesty, because that way Cassandra gets to keep her sword, which she needs for the end of the book. Speaking of which, by the way, when we were defeated last time, we were within a hair's breadth of the end of the book. It was so unbelievably close. So I was correct. This is a very short book, a very short adventure, but it is riddled with pitfalls and traps that may ensnare us should we go awry. So I looked further, because I was additionally interested in seeing what would happen if we had kept Foxglove with the party but not been enchanted by her. Which is possible, although that plays out quite differently in the reprint. So, I'm going to go to section, it's 15 or 35. Well, that's clearly too far. So, this is the Shinren section for 15. If we are kissed by Foxglove, and she overcomes us with her enchantment, in the original Now I'm just going to go to 55 and 75. Remember those numbers. Because 55... Oh, no. No, it's 35, isn't it, then? Because 35 is the being charmed by Foxglove, which takes you to 75. Same number, right? 55 has the important note that Foxglove has enchanted you, and then turns 75. So at 15 for Shinren, if we want to persuade her to stay, we go to section 75. In the reprint, now at 75, it is clear she has some power of enchantment over us. But we must presume it is temporary, because it has not been given to us as a permanent note. In the reprint, the note that we have been enchanted by Lady Foxglove moves from section 55 to section 75. So using Shinren to avoid enchantment no longer works in the reprint. Probably because in section 75 we are clearly under her power. So the only way to avoid it is to avoid the kiss and tell her to shut up and go to sleep and wait till morning. At which point she will try to stab us in the night. If we stay awake all night, she doesn't try. And we lose some endurance points, which makes the upcoming fights towards the end of the adventure much harder. It's 3 or 4 points, but hey, Cassandra, Chukchev and Form are fearsome opponents. And if we go to sleep, we get a fortune roll. If we fail the fortune roll, we don't wake up and she stabs us. If we succeed, we are woken by wolves howling in the distance and see her standing near us. She was going to try and stab us, but she sees us waking up and pretends to be scared of the wolves and tries to kiss us again. At which point, we loop back to the original section where she tries to kiss us, so it's possible to get into an endless permanent loop there. Right? And yes, we can end in the reprint, we can end up camping the night in the same place 2 or 3 times. And when she if we are woken by the wolves and she doesn't stab us, then we can go to sleep, in which case she still stabs us. Or we stay awake all night, or we let her kiss us, in which case we loop back round and then stay the night again after being kissed. And it's like, yeah, an extra night camping in the same space without going anywhere must be something to do with her beautiful charms. It's a bit colder and more hostile, but I should also point out that Foxglove, I mentioned in a previous video, felt like an underdeveloped, underutilized character. Unfortunately, I did then have a look in the Rift a bit, and I found where the bullthrush-headed pin is. So I've got a pretty good idea how to pull off an almost perfect run. However, if you find the bullthrush-headed pin, you don't need it. There is... you only find it if you try to get a disguise for both Foxglove and yourself. And then, after finding that disguise, you can head down into the chapel where we were spotted previously, or go in a very different direction. If you have the disguise, you can bluff your way through the Dark Elves and the Orcs in the chapel, pretend to be a Dark Elf, and if you successfully answer 1 or 2 questions, then they'll let you go. And you don't have to make a note of being spotted. If, on the other hand, you take the path I did not take, which avoids going down to the chapel entirely, then you never run into the spiders, never need the bullthrush-headed pin, and never really need the disguises. Then we get to the point where the party of adventurers from Book 2 had been fighting with some foes. And you can choose to go down the tunnel they came out of or down the big flight of stairs. We went down the tunnel they had emerged from last time. And both these paths, essentially in the reprint, lead to the same place. The chamber with all these skeletons dangling with chains from the ceiling. If you take one path, you go straight to that chamber. Well, no. If you take one path, you get to the bottom of the stairs and you get down to the next level and you're told you don't need your disguises anymore. They won't help you here. So you take them off. And if you take the other path, the one I believe I did this time, which made less sense, you are not instructed to remove your disguises. The difference being that when you enter this chamber, if you're still wearing disguises, the wizard, Taflur isn't the wizard, is he? He's one of the clerics. Can't remember his name, but the wizard casts a lightning bolt spell which kills Foxglove stone dead, which again affects the things that occur in Book 7. Whereas if you're not wearing disguises, they don't cast a lightning bolt at you and speak, and you interact with them the way we did. And if Foxglove is with you, she then tries to enchant them if she hasn't enchanted you already. And you can warn them against it or let it happen. And if she does enchant them, it does affect the final encounter. Depending on who she enchants, she can enchant the fighter or one of the clerics. If she... I can't remember which one it is. If she enchants one of the clerics and asks him to help her, he stands there indecisively and doesn't really do much in the fight. If she enchants the fighter, she draws him out of the fight to act as her personal bodyguard, so he doesn't help against Cassandra and Chutchev anywhere near as much. And the fight gets a lot harder, I think. Of course, it's better if she doesn't charm anyone. What else? I was correct in my 34, isn't it? Yeah. I was correct in this being a non-combat run like fuck. Run to the thing that is essentially the shoot down to Book 7. After the fight with Cassandra, Chutchev and Form, I was really close. So essentially now I have a pretty good understanding of this book, but it's been a week since I looked at it last, so could still cock up significantly. However, I was so hyped up and awake at this point, I went and had a look at Book 7 and practically played it without dice just to check out a few choices, to look for things, for consequences to some of these actions, right? Because I'm aware that the characters from this book are present in that one. And I must have looked at a good portion of the book, so it won't be as blind. I probably checked... instinctively, I want to say possibly even around half the book. And I saw that it has some really difficult combat sections, which I'm not looking forwards to. However, there is a point in that book where one of the characters, not a character we have previously met, explains that Book 7 is all about a sort of final showdown between the gods, and we will get to decide the fate of many of the gods of Orb. At which point, I realized that Cassandra is the only living representative of Nemesis, at this point. Just as the Chaos Bringers represent Anarkil, right? And the Dark Elves of the Rift represent the Shulak, the Black Widow, the Spider Mother, right? So at this point, Foxglove's more two-dimensional overt hostility becomes rather more less nonsensical. She represents that which can betray us, can drag us down, destroy us, if we're not careful. And while it's nice to think that maybe she could be rescued a little, it seems that actually she feels like a throwaway encounter that does very little at the start of the book, but realizing that all the gods have representatives, or many of them do at that point, she is more likely to return later on in the adventure and be a problem. Which also explains why shutting her down rather harshly in this book does seem to be the wiser choice. With that, let's go back to the beginning. So we've had feasting, we're happy, we just finished book 5, it was great, and we're now going to close the character sheet. Oh no, we're not. I've already, let's see. And open the backup sheet. Because we don't need our notes from the first book. Now, the plan is still to play book 0, the prequel, in between books 6 and 7, as a little interlude. That one, I've only looked at the first handful of sections, right? I looked at the intro, the first couple of sections, and that was about it. It represents a training exercise on the Island of Tranquil Dreams before book 1. Sometime before book 1, not necessarily immediately before. A training exercise in which other novices are also taking part. So, on the 5th day of Pamphos, Force Lady Gwyneth asks for an audience, which you gladly grant. She is even more ramrod straight than usual, and her lips are pressed together in an expression of determination. A party has come from the Rift. Glaivas? Dore, you ask eagerly, but your hopes are dashed. No, we still lack news of them. The news that we have is all unlooked for. An enemy of the city has returned. A traitress. She spits the word out with ill-concealed venom. Only one woman is hated by Gwyneth in this way. Foxglove, the beautiful courtesan who ran the Order of the Yellow Lotus, the secret informers of the reign of the demonic usurper. You remind Gwyneth that there has been no proof forthcoming that Foxglove betrayed the city of Shadowzar and the forces of evil from the Rift. What need of proof? Where was she when the orcs and the dark elves and their trolls overran the city? Gone. Disappeared. Poof! Into thin air. Pah! Into the bowels of Orb, more like. They are encamped on the edges of our farmland, guarded by 100 miserable, quivering orcs of the severed head. They? You inquire. Another woman is with her, a warrior woman, wearing a strange patchwork affair of scale mail. They demand amnesty from you before they will enter the city. They claim to bear news that you will find interesting. You pause to think things over, but Gwyneth continues. I can take them with but 20 of my cavalry. Foxglove is no fighter, then we will see what they have to say. We could ride out with Gwyneth to try and take them prisoner. Emphasis on the word try. Proclaim an amnesty using the town cry as Foxglove asks, hey, it's a new book, we should restore endurance Inner Force, and Shuriken. Or try to use our ninja skills to go out and capture them alone, which is pretty tough. I'm going to be honest, an honourable and fair ruler, and declare no harm shall come to them for the duration of this diplomatic mission. Amnesty for Foxglove and her retinue is proclaimed for our Dursman cast, and your unwelcome visitors enter the city. The orcs of the Severed Head, plainly very nervous, camp on Caravan Field and talk to no one. They are guarded by a special contingent of the Watch. Foxglove and her companion are escorted into your presence by Gwyneth and 10 shield maidens. You are met with a double surprise. The first surprise is Foxglove. She wears the same peacock gown that she wore when you first met her when she petitioned to become a member of your Privy Council, but it is torn and travel-stained. The extravagant peacock tail train has been ripped off it long ago. She is still beautiful, but her fragile beauty is that of a forlorn waif rather than the sophisticated courtesan you remember. The second surprise is the warrior woman. You recognize her haughtiness instantly. She is Cassandra, wanted by the priestesses of Illustra at Harif the Crow for the murder of their high priestess, along with other dangerous worshippers of the insane god of chaos, Anarkil. You were attacked by 3 of them because you had slain their barbarian friend in self-defense. Most clearly of all, you remember that she is a breathtakingly swift swordswoman. That reminds me, the moment where I was defeated by Chuchev last time, there's a it's not about beating him in a fight, it's about getting an item off him in the fight, which is incredibly useful in the next book. So it would be nice to try and get that item, but hey, it'll be luck of the dice when it happens. Right, 71. Cassandra strides towards the throne, neglecting to bow, and General Gwyneth moves in front of her to protect you. I have important news for you, Overlord. Your friend, Glaivas the Ranger Lord, is held prisoner by the Dark Elves in the Rift. Only you can save him, Avenger. If you do not yield the sceptre that is the badge and instrument of your rule to the bowels of Orb, your friend Glaivas will die the death of 1,000 torments, a death so horrible that only the immortal Dark Elves have the patience to execute it. If you yield the sceptre, then Glaivas and the headstrong paladin who accompanied him on his ill-advised adventure into the Rift will go free. She pauses for your reaction, running a hand through her spiked hair as a man might to conceal her nervousness. Will you ask her what she has to gain for placing herself in such danger while bringing you this message? Ask Foxglove whether Cassandra speaks the truth, or threaten to hold Cassandra hostage against Glaivas' return. I'll ask Foxglove if Cassandra is speaking the truth. Because one thing, this is like Columbo, right? You don't ask them to hear their answer. You ask them to hear how they answer. And see what you can glean from that. It's also interesting to know what sort of part Foxglove plays in the Chaosbringer's plans. Is she there to ensure we make it through to them? Because their plan is not very clear. We seem to be missing out on some significant details. Why do they need me, of all people, to be there? Or why do they need the Sceptre to be there? Now, it does seem from some of the sections, if we do not have the adventuring party with us, that they bicker over which one of them is going to get to use the power of the Sceptre. So it seems they're trying to steal the Sceptre and usurp the kingdom. But then why involve Foxglove in this? Have they just found her and are using her opportunistically? Are they using her as emotional leverage to control us to make sure we make it through to them? Or what? Foxglove looks nervously at Cassandra, who glowers at her before replying. The Dark Elves took Glaivas 2 days before we set out from the Rift. They want the sceptre. I do not know what became of the paladin. She hesitates. Wait. 2 days before we start from the... Not 4. Got it, okay. For a moment there it sounded like she was with the paladin and Glaivas. She hesitates and you prompt her to go on. She breaks into a flood of words. They will kill you, Avenger. It is a terrible place. The gods themselves could not survive in the bowels. The air is tainted by poison and death, and there are monsters that lurk there in the depths larger than cities. She is breathing rapidly, her breast rising and falling with the emotion. The dark elves are cruel and depraved beyond imagining. Don't send me back there with that woman, Overlord, I beg you. She points at Cassandra, who sneers at her in disgust. What part do you play in this, traitress? Gwyneth asks Foxglove. I am innocent of any dark design. Wait, Foxglove should be played by Charlie Brooks, who plays Janine Butcher in EastEnders. the desperate begging and manipulation that everyone seems to fall for. The incredibly hurt... What do you mean? What would I... Oh, maybe she's that kind of returning villain, right? Yeah, Janine Butcher. I can see it now. Okay. Oh, I don't think Janine's been in EastEnders for years now. For quite a few, at least. I know she came back once or twice. Right. I am innocent of any dark design. When my own city closed its gates on me, I fled to the rift for succour and found only cruelty that surpasses understanding. Gwyneth becomes more angry than you have ever seen her. She's almost raving. Vile worm! You fled to those for whom you opened the city gate when we were under siege, but they had no further use for you. You're only of use in this city, Foxglove. You have no martial skill, no sorcery or priestly powers, only the low cunning of a poisonous, gutterous toad. Now, this is interesting, because this reiterates the claim that she has no magic, although she attempts to enchant us later on. I feel that her enchantment is more through the use of potions and tonics and perfumes than actual spells. Although maybe that's how enchantment magic works in this world, right? Because when she tries to enchant the adventurers later on, it seems like she's got it on tap, you know. You ask Gwyneth to calm herself and ask again why Foxglove is here. Against my will, Overlord, I am but a helpless pawn in an evil game. That is possibly one of the truest things she has said. While she seems to be far more than a pawn in Book 7, if she appears more than once or twice, she still seems to be helpless and acting against her will. Initially. Presumably because of the powers of Nemesis and Shulak. Shulak does seem to be the great puppet mistress who uses people against their better judgment. Anyway, let's move on. Cassandra says, I brought the woman of Foxglove with me in order to gain safe entry to your city. I care not what you do with her, though I would take her back to the rift as a token of what is to come if you wish. Since you killed Shadazar, the Black Widow rules the Dark Elves. Foxglove has made quite an impression on the Black Widow, haven't you, my beauty? Foxglove throws herself to her knees and begs you not to send her back to the bowels of Orb. General Gwyneth says that Foxglove is a traitress and should be put to the sword. Will you order that Foxglove be executed for the part Gwyneth says she played in the razing of the city? Send her back to the rift with Cassandra in the hope that this may buy time for your friend Glaivas? Set her free, or say that Foxglove must accompany you should you decide to travel to the rift. We do want to have Foxglove with us in the rift. At the end of the book, beginning of the next book. It's not required. When we meet her in book 7, we can literally say, aren't you dead? And she'll say, yes, but the Spider Queen's wicked spells drew me back here. Even here I cannot rest, sort of thing. So it's like... Which we don't have to believe, by the way. But it would make sense if multiple gods and goddesses have their hand in this and are trying to create some great game upon the board of life. Having her with us in the rift, but without being under her spell, can be somewhat beneficial. In that she warns us of some bad decisions I did not make. And while she also is a bit of a liability, because she's vulnerable and needs to be protected and looked after. Although, interestingly, there's one or two places where she could be quite vulnerable and isn't. Such as running through the hail of arrows in the chapel. So let's imprison her and demand she accompanies us when we travel to the rift. As it's just over the page as well. Gwyneth escorts Foxglove none too gently back to the donjon, the windowless tower at the northeast corner of the palace. There she will languish until you make your decision whether or not to rescue Glaivas. Interestingly enough, I haven't checked in this one, but in the reprint, if we set her free, Gwyneth gets really angry and we can actually get into a fight with Lady Gwyneth, which probably leads to a very bad end and not completing the adventure, presumably. So she's now in the prison. Why are you calling a tower a donjon? The donjon is a specific type of prison. It's a pit in the floor with a grate over the top, and the prisoner is lowered down into the deep pit so they can't climb out of it, and then left there to be forgotten and occasionally fed if people remember. So a tower is rather the opposite. You decide to try to find out more information. Will you ask Cassandra where in the rift Glaivas is being held? How many dark elves are there in the rift? Or where her friends Tchutchev and Form are to be found? Now, I believe we get to ask her 2 questions. Possibly just for one. Before she says, that's enough, I'm leaving. Let's ask about her friends. Asking how many dark elves are there is a pretty pointless question. It's going to be a very big number. Form was unwell following our last meeting with you, so unwell that we had at great cost to secure the services of a high priest. It left Form a pauper. Cassandra may be suggesting that he has been brought back from the dead, or perhaps that he was near mortally wounded by you. She goes on. There are many dark places in the rift in which to hide. There is no telling whom you might meet, Avenger, in the everlasting darkness. You may ask her one more question. In which case we'd better ask her where Glaivas is being held in the rift. Glaivas is kept captive beyond the 7th tier in the area known as the Forbidden Sanctuary. The Black Widow's web reaches out from the hub there. Then, I will answer no more questions, but I will tell you this. When you reach the 4th tier, take the narrow way. The Way of Thrones has been baited as a trap for you, Avenger. A trap that even you cannot hope to survive. Now, at this point, if we remove this and this, beyond the 7th layer, and on the 4th, at this point, we can go back to using the default character sheet. We'll just restore these values. There we go. And we can close the backup sheet. There we go. It would mean certain death for Glaivas, if he still lives, were you to detain Cassandra, so you tell her that she is free to leave and forbid her to enter the city again on pain of death. As she leaves, she says, "We may yet meet again, Avenger, or are you too craven to take up the quest? Now you must decide what to do about the plight of your poor friend Glaivas." Right, this here. This section here is completely missing from the reprint, and you just decide to go. Because if you don't go, no adventure. You're done. Finished. Short book, right? Really short book. And also no book 7. A number of other sections like this have been trimmed from the reprint, because they additionally added something like another 4 or 5 or 6 sections to the fight at the end. And the book is 4 sections shorter. So there's been some trimming and manipulation done, but overall it's basically the same adventure. And it plays more consistently. There's more mentions of whether Foxglove is with you or not, which is a nice consideration. Any decision you make should be taken quickly, lest Cassandra be spending her time brewing some terrible trap or ambush for you in the rift. Once back in Earthmancast, you must come to a decision quickly. We are in Earthmancast. Once back at Earthmancast, you must come to a decision quickly. If it were not for Glaivas, you would probably not now be overlord of the city. To take the Sceptre into the bowels of Orb is to expose it and yourself to the gravest danger. If you decide to try and save Glaivas, then you actually want to play this adventure. If you abandon Glaivas to his fate, well, bugger you, you know. Okay. It is worth noting that the Chaos Bringers and the Dark Elves do not make hollow threats, and the dead body of Glaivas is delivered to the city a while ago. That would mean this section is also possibly removed. Memories of how Glaivas brought the Rangers to help you in your fight against the Legion of the Sword of Doom help you make up your mind completely. You will risk all to save your friend, absolutely. But what is not so absolutely sensible is the fact that we take the bloody Sceptre with us. Because we know its power only works on those who are not our enemy, and heading into the Rift, it's going to be full of our enemies. You cannot ask another to share with you the dangers of the Rift. Foxglove must come with you as punishment for deserting her city in its time of need. She may be useful to you, but there is no point in taking an armed band. No matter how large, it would be outnumbered by the denizens of the Rift. Stealth will be your greatest asset. You take the Sceptre and swathe it in black cloth, then hide it inside your ninja costume. Why? I don't think it's necessarily particularly useful in Book 7, and actually it might be a bit of a gamble, and there are a few places where it might be useful, but we'll see. Leaving Gwyneth orders to publish the news that you are journeying to meet 2 saviours of the city, you set off to that darkest pit of evil, the bowels of Orb. One other artifact you take from the Royal Armoury, the Torch of Lumen, an ebony rod topped by... Oh no, sorry. Right. It's not one other act... Right, blah. I got the emphasis in that wrong. It's like, it's not... There's no one artifact that you take from the Royal Armoury. It's just... No. So the emphasis is on take, not on the artifact itself. One other artifact you take from the Royal Armoury, the Torch of Lumen. No. One other artifact you take from the Royal Armoury, the Torch of Lumen, an ebony rod topped by a cone of alabaster. When the alabaster is touched, it gives off a constant light that will be invaluable in the eternal darkness of the Rift. And I should have technically removed that, but hey, it's still there. Okay. The rift has been a cauldron of evil since time immemorial. All manner of wicked and unnatural creatures spawn there, giving rise to an endless stream of evil pouring from the dark chasm across the lands of men. Dark elves, sisters of Nulak, orcs, old ones, sons of Nil, plague trolls, these are but a few of the denizens lurking in the unending darkness. The chasm itself is like an immense gorge surrounded by a honeycomb of natural tunnels and carven halls which stretch to the very centre of Orb. A man could walk for a lifetime in the bowels of Orb and still not trace every catacomb and vault. You decide to make for the northern end of the rift. Foxglove retrieves a few of her old clothes before you leave, and you have to forbid her from packing an entire trousseau. She rides out behind you on a white mare which you hold on a leading rein, wearing scarlet and black, kept warm by a sable cloak. You leave the city under cover of darkness and camp the following evening, by which time Foxglove is complaining of exhaustion, though she has ridden and you have walked. Yeah, but riding a horse does wear you out, still, just not as much as walking. You are not far from the River of Beasts. Will you stay up all night to make sure Foxglove does not escape, or sleep soundly and trust to your animal alertness to wake you if anything is amiss? Previously, we stayed up all night, and it cost us a few endurance points. Let us take some rest this time. We're going to need our strength for the next day. You wake once during the night to find Foxglove still lying down, staring at you intently. As soon as she realizes you are returning her gaze, she turns over and pulls her sable fur around her head. You drift off to sleep again after a time and wake before her with the dawn. Staring intently. Could that be a death gaze, like I'm gonna really get you? On the next day, Foxglove is sullen and will not speak to you. Tomorrow you will sight the last hills and forests before the rift, and you will have to set the horse free and continue on foot. When you camp at evening, however, she comes close to you, her eyes shining with tears, and says that she is too lonely and afraid to go on. Avenger, no one has shown me the smallest shred of kindness for longer than I can remember. I will go with you to the rift, as I must, but if you do not embrace me now, my heart will break and I shall lose my mind. We can comfort her as she desires, or refuse her this kindness. Well now, this would be the first main point where the two books diverge, so we play old book version as much as we can, and only use the new book if we must. All should be well. Now, if we refuse her, we have the option to say, look, we don't trust you, we want to search you, and she'll, take out her dagger and put it down, and then, then we can embrace her, and she'll go in for the kiss every time, right? If she can, anytime she gets within arm's reach. Big kissy kissy girl, that's her. I feel we should be good and kind, even if she is going to be evil. So we will offer her a little comfort. Foxglove comes into your arms and rests her head on your shoulder. An intoxicating aroma of exotic perfume, the scent of passion flowers from the island of the goddess, wafts over you. You look into her eyes and marvel at her frail beauty. Before you can stop her, she has stolen a kiss. We do have the skill of Shinren, which is going to be a bit of a lifesaver now, to be honest. Because if we make it through to the Chaos Bringers at the end and are charmed by her, she will beg us to protect her, and when she is threatened, we are forced to defend her and then suffer the auto-kill because it was a trap. Foxglove Kiss has a strange effect on you. You find yourself gazing into her eyes and wondering how you could be taking such a noble and perfect person into grave peril. Foxglove is an enchantress, and you have almost fallen under her spell. The hard training that you learned on the faraway island of Tranquil Dreams is enough to stop you becoming her slave, but her enchantment is powerful. She mounts the white horse, smiles and waves goodbye. Farewell, Avenger! As she rides away, you suffer a pang of anguish at losing her, but you are gladdened by the thought that she is out of danger. You settle down, a solitary dark figure lit by the dying embers of a campfire, or, if you wish to ignore your hard training and call Foxglove back heedless of her enchanting ways, let us do that, right? Because we have already avoided the danger because we're playing the original version of the book. That may need to change in the final showdown with the Chaosbringers. In the morning, Foxglove smiles at you and lights up your heart with joy. She asks for the sceptre as a sign of your esteem for her. You have some misgivings about this, and struggle for a time to resist the temptation of falling into her wishes, lose a point of inner force. But we are not under her control. Now, this is the exact section we would be. I mentioned this earlier. I told you earlier that, they move it from 55 to 75 in the new book. In the end, however, you decide to give in just as you near the edge of a gaping chasm that is the rift. She smiles, and in her eyes is the knowledge that you would do anything she asked you to. Having proved your point, she gives back the sceptre and bids you lead on. Although little does she know, her enchantment is fading and will soon expire, and that was only the tail end of her spell that was wearing off. You reach the edge of the great chasm without glimpsing any of the dark elvish magicians who might be on the lookout for you. The air is rank with the smells of sulphur and ammonia. Stale, hot air seeps out of the great fissures that split the barren rock. There are no wild animals here at the edge of the bowels of Orb, only dust. At the lip of the chasm you pause to look down. There is no bottom, or if there is, it is lost in darkness kilometers below. To the east you can dimly see the other wall, towering a kilometer above you like a distant bank of cloud. There are many twisting stairways and tracks leading down the side of the canyon wall, and there is even a road wide enough for carts and siege machines, winding snake-like into the depths of the earth. It must have been a terrible labour to haul up to the light the engines that attacked your city. Foxglove says that the road passes many concealed guard posts. And we have Foxglove with us now. So she has warned us. We could take the twisting stairways or the road. We've been warned about the road. We didn't have a warning previously, but avoided it anyway out of common sense. So that's the first instance of her helping us. The nearest stairway is crumbling and unused. The steps are half eroded in places, but you make your way steadily down into the gloom. After half an hour's climb, in which time you have seen no living creature, you come to a gallery of caves served by many tunnels and paths cut into the side of the canyon wall. You have reached the first tier and are already in a twilight world. You touch the torch of lumen and it casts a gentle glow about you. You will need its light from here on. And the torch of lumen will illuminate the end of the episode and the beginning of the next one. Because my throat's getting quite dry and I've definitely been recording for a decent length of time. I hope you've all enjoyed this episode, even if it is a bit like retreading old ground, and I hope some of my thoughts and insights into the adventure will be appreciated, and I'm sure you'll all be welcome to use the comments section, and I'll respond to comments as well, as usual. So, see you all next time, guys. We're all ninjas. Wish I'd thought of that one for the first 6 books.